this first hand here comes from the mid stages of the tournament. The starting stack was 5k and the blinds are 250, 500. I have a stack of 13,000, which probably puts me a little bit below average, although I'm not certain about that. The action here, it folds around to me in the small blind, and I open 2.5x here.
Sounds good.
As I would get deeper in a tournament and get shorter stacked, I would bring this down a little bit, but typically through the mid stages of a tournament, 2.5x from the small blind is fairly standard for me. The big blind elects to call, which could be a hugely wide range of hands. And the flop comes King 5-4 Rainbow with one of my suit, which definitely isn't a bad flop by any means. I think on this board I'll have the best hand a bunch. I think he'll fold a bunch. I do think if I bet the flop, he will call plenty of worse hands, but at the same time, he will have just so many terrible hands that are folding here that I think betting's the only real option.
Yeah, and I think if he is going to do some floats with ace-2 at the back for a flush draw or queen-jack with the back for a flush draw, I think you can play the turn well enough that you don't really need to be afraid of getting floated in this spot. You definitely just need to bet here. Even though he might do some floats like that, he's not really owning you.
Yeah, so I elect to bet just half pot. He calls. Turn is a 10, and now here, I'm going to have the best hand the majority of the time. He definitely can have a lot of King X type hands, or he could have a 5-4 suited or something like that, but in general my hand here is fairly strong. I don't think there's any real sense in betting. I think my best line is to check and then bet rivers.
Yeah.
So I check to him. And often, if he is floating, he'll typically bet here, I would think, since he might think I'm giving up.
Yeah.
He bets 40% of the pot. And I think just calling here is the play. I think that my hand is not particularly vulnerable against very many hands he could possibly have, and there's almost no draws out there, and I don't really think protecting my hand has nearly as much value as if I'm jamming, he's just going to play almost perfectly. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So what do you do if he bombs it? If he makes it 4,500 instead of 2,500, what's your plan?
I think if you made it as large as 4,500. I would probably end up just shoving here since he has a queen 9 type hand or something like that. They're protecting from outs like that it does have some value, but pretty much anything below that, if you've got 3,800 or something, I'd typically just call.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. And I think your hand is just so good. Basically, you should rarely fold, and if he bets 4,500, I think he doesn't have a king that frequently.
Yeah. And the river comes an ace. This is not a line that I would recommend taking against an opponent I respect. I'm pretty sure as a general game plan, I shouldn't be betting this river. But in practice, against an opponent I respect, but in practice, I think most people here won't be good hand readers or capable of realizing it's almost impossible for me to be bluffing in this spot. Rather, they'll just be oh, this is a red pro. He's probably aggressive. I'm just going to click the call button and then check behind a lot of King X type hands. So I thought there's not going to be a huge number of bluffs he'd have. And I just figured he's basically never value betting a king.
Yeah.
But I think that he's likely to call a king, and I think that that's a more substantial factor than him bluffing the river. So I thought that betting here was a better option than check calling.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I like that. I think against good players, they just can't possibly put you on a bluff here, and they'll most likely fold. But I think if you don't think you can read into that, then leading out here is good since I don't see him folding a king.
So I bet out 66-66, which is just kind of a habit of mine. It's effectively the same as jamming.
I think I like jamming a bit more just because you get a bit more value when you do get called. I think he calls 6666 basically as frequently as he calls a jam. I think you get a bit more value just by jamming. He might fold slightly more frequently, but I think I would prefer just jamming.
Yeah, it's tough to comment one way or the other. I feel probably jamming is again a better part of an overall game plan.
Okay.
He jams over it. I call, and he has 10-5. It's I would say an overly light defend by him pre-flop
for sure.
But after that, it's a extremely standard hand the way that he played it.
Okay. One last question: what do you do if the river is say a complete blank, an offsuit deuce or something, and you check and he shoves?
I would say that even an offsuit deuce is not a complete blank. I do think something like an ace-2 is less likely to bluff, an ace-3 is completed, a 6-3 suited is completed. I think there are very few cards that are just complete blanks on a board like this.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
But, it will be a tough spot overall. I think most of his good kings, he would be 3-betting pre-flop. and there aren't that many. And I think that a lot of people wouldn't be like value shoving just any top pair by any means. So I think that his range becomes polarized enough at that point that I think I'd be calling a river shove on most board, or like on most turn card, or most river cards. Sorry.
Okay, cool.